Hey Panthers! We are taking a look at section 5.5, which is solving proportions. And just to recap where we've been, we've talked about ratios, which is a comparison of two quantities. We've talked about rates, which are a comparison of two quantities that have two what? Units, two different units. And we've talked a little bit about proportions. Remember, a proportion is saying that two ratios are equal to each other. Two ratios are equal to each other. And we've talked the past couple days about direct variation and proportional relationships that all tie back into unit rates. So we're going to have one more part of this lesson, which is solving proportions. So just to clarify and to jog your memory, remember that when you're looking at a proportion, you can tell if they are equal to each other by doing cross products, okay? In other words, multiply the denominator of one ratio to the numerator of the other and vice versa. And if they are proportional, what happens when you do cross products? You get the same answer. Okay, you get the same answer. So remember the math rule, and that is if the cross products of the ratios are equal, then the ratios form a proportion. Today what we're looking at are proportions that are missing a value, and you have to find the missing value. So let's take a look. Example 1 wants to use cross products to solve the proportion. Now looking at letter A, it says we have the ratio of 9 to 15, and we know, because there's an equal sign, we know that it's equal to the proportion of m to 5. However, we have a variable here, m. Do we know what m is if we're using it as a variable? No. So we're going to use cross products and write an equation and then use the steps to solve an equation to find what m is. So essentially what we're doing here is trying to figure out what m is so we can complete our proportion. So let's do our cross products. What is 15 times m? 15m. And this is going to be equal to, because that's the rule for cross products, this is going to be equal to 9 times 5, which is what? 45. Now I have an equation to solve. And it's a quick one-step equation. Remember, we're solving for m. m is being multiplied by 15, so what do we have to do? Divide both sides by 15. And our inverse operations cancel out, and we have an answer of m equals 3. And that's your answer. So we know that the ratio 9 to 15 is equal or proportional to the ratio of 3 to 5. But again, all you're doing for these types of problems is solving for the variable using cross products. Take a look at B. Again, cross multiplying. F times 4 is 4f. This is equal to 3 times 8, which is 24. Now again, we're solving for f and we want to get f alone. F is being multiplied by 4, so you need to divide. And remember, if you divide one side of your equation, you must divide the other. You need to be doing the same to both sides to keep it equal. And f therefore equals 6. And there's your answer. C, we have b times 14, which is 14b, and this is equal to the other cross product of 15 times 7. So grab your calculators. 15 times 7 is 1050. Okay. Now again, we want to solve for b. b is being multiplied by 14, so you need to divide. And we're going to divide both sides by 14. And we find out that b equals 75. And that is your answer. So again, plugging this back in up here, we know that the ratio 15 to 75 is equal to the ratio of 14 to 70. And D. When you do your cross products, it doesn't matter which way you do them. I always start with the cross product that contains my variable, because I always like to have my variable on the right-hand side of my equation. It doesn't matter which way you choose to do it, but I always start with the cross product that has my variable. So K times 35 is 35K, and because this is a proportion, I know it's equal to 63 times 45, which is 2,835. Now again, you should be using a calculator for this. K is being multiplied by 35, so you need to divide both sides by 35. And therefore, when I do the math, K equals 81. There's your answer. So that's example 1. Now the other part of the practice will be looking at some story problems. Okay. Let's take a look at these. And again, you're going to be doing the exact same thing. You're just going to be pulling out and writing your own proportion based on what you read in the story problem. So for letter A, use proportions to solve each problem. And then we're given some information. If 3 volumes of Jennifer's encyclopedia take up 4 inches of space on her shelf, how much space will she need for all 26 volumes? Okay? When you're writing proportions, you need to make sure that your units are the same going across your proportions. For instance, if you're talking about money over time, when you write your proportions, this number on the ones on the right hand side must also be the same going across. So if this top one is money, this one needs to match. And if this bottom one is time, this bottom one also must match. So when you're writing your own proportions, make sure you're setting them up correctly so the units are the same going across, because it's very easy to get the numbers in the wrong spot. So go back to our information. Let's pick out the key components of our proportion. We have 3 volumes for every what? 4 inches. So this is a rate because we have 2 different what? Units. We're talking about volumes of encyclopedias and 4 inches of space. So let's write that out as a rate. For every 3 volumes, it takes up 4 inches. So when we go to write our proportion, we're going to want to make sure that all of the volume units are on top and all of the inches are on the bottom. So let's write out our ratio. 3 to 4 is equal to, let's take a look at what we're trying to solve for. If we look at the question says, how much space will she need for all 26 volumes? How much space will she need for 26 volumes? Now we know the number 26, right? Okay. Is 26 going to go on top or bottom? What are the units for 26? 26 what? Volumes. Where is volumes at? Top. Remember, your units have to be the same going across. So this 3 represents volumes, so the number that represents volumes also has to go on the top on the other side of your proportion. Okay? This represents 3 volumes, this represents 26 volumes. The other thing we're solving for is what? We're trying to find the amount of space, which is we are measuring in what? We are measuring in inches. Do we know the space? That's what we're solving for. What's a good variable for space? Or we could use S. Also, we could use I, since we're talking about, we're measuring in inches. I'm going to put I. Do you see the proportion now? Now you're going to do what we just did. Now remember, the story problems aren't too bad if you take the time to write out the rate that you're given. And the biggest thing you have to remember is that your units have to be the same going across. Okay? So let's solve this. I'm going to start with my variable. 3 times I is 3i, and because it's a proportion, I know that this is equal to 26 times 4, which is what? 104. I is being multiplied by 3, so we're going to divide both sides by 3. And we find out that I equals 34 and 66 hundredths. What are my units? What does I stand for? Inches. So again, if you use the right variable, you know what your units need to be. Inches. Let's try another one. B. In a mayoral election, new mayor received 3 votes. Here's a number. 3 votes for every vote received by the incumbent. Okay? What's an incumbent? It's the person running against you. Okay? So the mayor received 3 votes for every 1 vote that the incumbent reads. So let's write that out. The mayor, which is kind of like our units, the mayor received 3 votes when the incumbent only received what? 1. Okay? So here's the rate we're given. We're going to use this. The new mayor received 2,469 votes. How many votes did the old incumbent receive? So take the ratio that we are given, the 3 to 1. 3 represents who? The new mayor. 1 represents the... So when we write our proportion, our top number has to refer to the new mayor. What else do we know about the new mayor? The new mayor received how many votes? Okay, so the new mayor we're talking about needs to be on top. And do we know what the incumbent received? The incumbent on the bottom, we don't know. What's a good variable? What are we talking about? What do these numbers represent? Votes. I'm going to use V. Okay? So, I'm going to start with my variable. I'm going to cross multiply with the variable. 3 times V is 3V. And 1,000, or 1 times 2,469 is 2,469. V alone, we're going to divide both sides by 3. And in the end, we find out that V, or the number of votes the incumbent received, was actually 823 what? Votes. Okay. And our last one, C. There are 72 gray mice in the barn. If the ratio of brown mice to gray rice is 1 to 3, how many gray mice are there? Let's start with the ratio we are given. What do we know? We know the ratio of brown to gray. And I'm going to label this so I don't get my units mixed up. Brown to gray is 1 to 3. So use the ratio I'm given to find out the unknown. What other piece of information do I know here? What else do I know? I know there are 72 gray mice. For my proportion, is 72 going to go on top or bottom? Bottom, because gray is on the bottom and put your variable. I'm going to use m on top. Panthers, go ahead and cross multiply, solve for m, and you are done. Have a good night.